Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Rich from Rich Millington Music. And today we're looking at a really unique and unusual scale. It's called the Neapolitan Major scale. So we'll take a look at some of the features that make this such an interesting scale. And then, as usual, we'll look at some examples of how we can use this in our compositions. So the first thing to note about this scale is the unusual distribution of scale steps. If we look at the scale as written, it's got 7 distinct scale steps, just like a regular major or minor scale. But if we take a closer look, we see it's actually quite unusual. In the lower tetrachord here, we see that we have the tonic, a flat second and a minor third, and then a normal fourth. So even though this is called a Neapolitan major scale, it actually has a minor quality because of this minor third scale degree. And these 4 lower notes are actually the same as the lower 4 notes of a Phrygian mode. So if our music focuses on these lower 4 notes, it's going to have a very Phrygian quality to it. And in the upper tetrachord, these upper 4 notes here, well, this is much more conventional. It has the same upper tetrachord as a standard major scale. So it's this really interesting mix of the very dark Phrygian flavour in the lower half with the much brighter character of the major scale in the upper half. And there are a couple of other interesting things about this scale as well. If we look at the flat 2, minor 3, and then the degrees 4, 5, 6 and 7, we notice that all these tones are separated by a whole tone. And what do you get if you have 6 notes all separated by a whole tone? Well, we've got a whole tone scale, right? So we actually have an entire whole tone scale contained within the Neapolitan major scale. And because of these unusual scale steps, we can't really get a standard set of triads from them. So if we're drawing our chords just from Neapolitan major, it'll tend to give us lots of augmented chords. So let's take a look at how we might compose with this scale. In this first example, we've got our melodic lines supplied by the flute, oboe and cor anglais. And the harmonic texture is partly a drone in the lower notes and alternating thirds in the upper voices in the strings here. So overall, the background harmony is quite static here. And we don't have to just draw our harmony notes from the scale itself, right? We can go outside of the scale for our harmonies if we want to. So in this second example, the melody notes are all played portato in the violins and violas and the celli, and they all come from the Neapolitan major scale. But the harmonies use notes that are sometimes drawn from outside that scale. You can see this if I open up the piano roll here. Some of the chords have these orange notes, so these are the notes that are from outside the scale. In the third example, I wanted to continuously project the entire scale throughout the passage. So we've got different woodwinds here, and they're playing staccato and they're playing the scale continuously. And some of them are playing the scale upwards, some of them are playing downwards, so they're kind of playing against each other. And on top of that background texture, there are some flutter-tongued notes in the flute, and some pizzicato gestures from the celli. The fourth example is more of a chordal texture, and this is made up of notes from the alto flutes and the horns playing very softly. So we've got C minor here, C sus4, A7 and D flat augmented, which all use notes drawn from the scale. And then we've got the marimba and the vibraphone, and they're playing scale steps in a rising pattern as well. So as you can hear, if you just stick to notes from within the scale for your harmonies, you can get some pretty mysterious sounding progressions from this scale. And when we're using a scale that lends itself well to a certain mood or feeling, we may well want to go with that, right? To go with the grain of the scale that we're using. But sometimes it can be interesting to try and do something a little bit different with a scale, to go against the grain a little bit, just to see what we can come up with. And the final example is an example of this. So I tried to give this scale a bit more of a martial character. So it's more heavily orchestrated with a driving ostinato accompaniment in the low strings. And in this version, every note comes from the Neapolitan Major scale. So both in the melody and in the accompaniment, this is all Neapolitan Major. Alright guys, so that's just a few examples of how we could use the Neapolitan Major scale. It's an interesting scale with a lot of possibilities for writing music that's a little bit unusual, so I hope that's given you some ideas you can use. And if you'd like some free composition resources, you can download those from my website richmillington.com, and if you're interested in my ebook on 4-part harmony, you can pick that up there too. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.